Knowing the presence of you through anything, the box frame, triangulation frame, hard communication line, course centers, calculate, modify, direct location system, all three calculate, modify the line track of communication lines of phase direction of time frame. How we have to identify line settings is to really understand the position location of a system all through presence. Presence of everything is a modification system all through attractions. Okay, so you are your observant that sees everything based on the system that you've already done through calculations. Presence of everything, right? Process here, here, and here, how you set up location of your simulator into window frame, box frame, triangulation frame, all through align position of projector or its projection. Okay, you see things, right? Frames of communication system, frames of tractions, frame division location system, multi calculations. But it's all modified in line screen adaptation to laws in traction. Okay, how you see things. Box frame, triangulation frames, triangulation to box frame, set position. All right? So, but you're always here observing everything. Okay, so what we're doing today in line screen adaptation of the school line is that you guys are going to get to see your true, authentic self that's done everything through its equation. You have 5 questions to ask in traction. Okay, so that's you, the presence of everything. That's seeing everything, location to its operation to its clocking. Everything to its foundation that is sees and travel in that communication system, multi-calculation. All right? All right, so weighting in signals. We get 7 panels, 1 center of surface and location. All right. 6 centers of travel equals lines of 1 over cross line triangulation of flux. Confirmation lines 0, 2. 2 design lines 0, lines of 1, 1 line signal, 2 lines over lines, cross line, 3 equals lines equation. Triangulations of flux over flush. Directing ground centers, signature lines of pattern, processes that correlates and sending communication. So everything we do is interpreted through the mind that we already know. How to project that locates to its cycle. But this is you coming into the presence of you that's done everything in location system, all through track location of its eternity, infinity. Look at that, how it disappears, see? You're not ready to see the frequencies until you get out of the motions of everything. Okay? You don't want to overlap your system because you're already existing in the sim. But seeing everything already puts everything out of the presence. This helps you to defy your system and know exactly how you communicate to yourselves in all tractions, right? All right, so let's get in position lines of 3 weighting panels. Process indicates setting 3 ground centers, 4 setting lines, and set position of 5 sequence. Flux over line, flux over 2, flux over 8, flux over 12. Set lines of travel. Directing grounds, set positional levels of measured scale, communication. Ground centers, holographic streaming, direct state location setting of its grids. Alright? Okay, so we process here, and we process here. It's attraction. Alright, so, and you are here. You can be observant anywhere you want. You can put yourself anywhere in that position. Now you just come into the presence of everything and say travel. But you're always the observer of everything you've already done. You're always the observer of everything you've already said. And you're always the observer that you brought in position of the game itself. Okay? So that's what you're going to see in frequency now. And each has a highline screen adaptation system that you bring in platforms. Okay, when you bring in the intelligence in, you're bringing in the platforms of communication. When you bring that in, you're bringing the intelligence information system onto its game of simulation. All through set position of its operation sequence that puts all communication setting into the presence of everything. Okay? But you're always the observer, the observant to everything of operation system. Okay? All right, time centers, time sequence, future adaptation lines and settings, 0 line course centers, process line 0, 1, set lines of 0, 2, process lines of 0, 3, process lines 0, 4, and set position lines 0, 5. Bypassing setting number 0, 6, and line connection 0, 7, 0, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sequence lines of 3 over center, 3 over measure, 3 over scale. Back to 0, set position of 0, 1 attractions. Rate communication lines of team, alteration line course centers, out of the box, out of frame, out of position, location system, off attractions. Psychosis location setting and travels, point lines of graph, and line course centers of communication. Okay? Directing lines of panels, process lines. All position future adaptation is coming in set lines of communication setting. And travel, towards clouds, operation lines of sequence. Relates to timelines, high center line on position location, measure and scale, process line connection setting. Process line, course center line communication system, off the travel. Brain conversion to that position location and future adaptation lines. information cycle, and position locations presence of everything locations. Okay, setting all sequence in 3 centers and scale. Okay, have fun. See the future adaptation of self-aligned scenes. Puts every location system you film straight lines. You have 5 questions. Locking sequence. After the 5 questions, you go back and where you are in set directions. All through operation lines and ground settings. Process lines and set position. Set calculation ground center calculation system galaxy communication. All right. So you got 30 clocking centers and screens in position 30 million miles frames. Directing line can extend 3 billion line frame core centers and travel. Directing lines of 5 questions over sequence. And set lines of signatures, open panels, process lines of mine, and set lines of communication, and center lines of surface, and signature lines of 3 ground set calculation lines, and figures and system, and travel. Okay, have fun. All right, this interprets all communication system alterations. Now, getting in the position location line centers is to understand the alignments of your system. Now, understand how to communicate to that is basically you are the observant, and you're always going to see that now because you're seeing more of the presence of you when it takes you out of what you aren't. And the more you see yourself observant, the more you see yourself in that position. Okay, but you bring it in, see? You bring it in. So it's you seeing you from all platforms of communications. Inside traction, right? So that's settings. This is where you're set up in travel. Showing you different line signals and location setting and the conversion system of mind and brain calculations. So the line centers puts the intel set position, operation line sequence, mapping lines, correlation centers, track interference, location lines of symbiote, directing ground center calculations. High signal lines of grounds, high formation lines of 3 centers of travel. Okay, correlate, calculate lines, mapping centers. Balanced rotation system towards Earth and rotation set lines of communication. Directing ground centers, process lines of grounds, powers, and atmospheres of space line calculation setting. Sets lines of body formation setting, avatars already set locations, back in sequence, back in panel, back in operation, back in track location. Okay? Directing lines, laser line communication hand interference, and rotation system and traction all through direction. Okay? So, it's basically understanding that everything you draw is already drawn. Now, what you have to identify is be the observant of you, of everything you've already done, right? And you're seeing it at all different angles. You're seeing above, below, anywhere in line condition setting, because you codify it, so you know exactly what it is. There's binary, okay, to its transition location settings. But you're observing here, you're observing there, and now you're observing over here. Okay, so you're seeing all different angles all at once of what you've already done through your presence in set position. Okay, so you're observing there, all at once. It's that sequence. Okay? Because you can be anywhere in triangulation and settings. Vortex, time length, time jump, right? So once you understand how to get in that positions, then you have to understand how to coordinate that line communication system off your highways. Modems, satellites, and towers. Primers, 3 centers, 2 track centers, 4 communication setting the surface. Process indication setting and row graph screens at 3 centers of travel. Okay. Directing ground centers of 1, offline core centers of 2. So the communication setting to the observer becomes more powerful in traction. It directs its signals and location system off the setting. Okay. All right, let's get the line position. It's pyramid. There's the pyramid travel. Okay. All right, so ground centers, line over line, center line, sequence location setting over panel. Process indicates the system, all through settings. Operation lines in line conditions and solar traction. Remember, everything's an open window. You're always observing everything now in some position. Always observing everything here, setting position here, over here, solar system and traction. Always observing everything. Presence of everything is the presence of nothing. Nothing is the presence of everything, location, system, all through tractions, right? So every time you're setting up schematics or anything in that position, location, to cycle, get you understand how to use that in all formation system on traction locations. So this helps you to identify how to put that in positions, all right? So let's say you're the observer of your presence and you're here. Yeah, let's get a signal here. Modificate the system. Okay, so you're looking at this angle. That's you, right? And you're projecting what you've already done in a film strip in 3 centers. Okay, directing here, here, seconds, minutes, and hours. Seconds, minutes, and hours, right? You go to that, right? Then you go to another film strip, okay? Then you go to another film strip, and then you become the film strip of you, right? When you combine the film strip, you're just the Earth itself in set position, right? So it's easy to identify these things, guys. It really is. How you see your formulas, how you see your equations. But you're constantly observing, onlooking, the on-watcher of you, right? Of the presence of everything. So get those questions answered, you feel a lot more comfortable now through your systems and travel. Okay? All through schematics, all through primer, all through primer. Okay, all through clocking. All through foundation of grounds, powers, and atmospheres in set position. All right? Understand your platforms and settings. Understand your sequence lines, communication lines, and patterns. Understand your operation line, sequence location system, all through traction. So it's all about how to understand you, all lines of all communication to your pyramids. Your pyramids, guys. Pyramid is everything. And the more you go higher in the mind, the more you come into the astral projections of just the mind itself out of the body. Out of the body. And you come to all levels of the mind itself and travel. Okay? Then you're here. Right here. This is you observing. You're observing here. And you're observing here. And you're observing here. And you're observing here all at once. That's a lot of observations, looking in directions. Okay? But you see yourself on the platform, different levels of the game. So if we get a true understand how this all works, then you understand the platitudes. And when you understand the platitudes, you understand what you're doing through operations. How you sequence lines of panels, process lines of indication system all through travel, in coordination, setting, and coordinates. Process lines of indication lines of 1, 2, 3 lines of scale. Okay, so the observance here. So you're always going to see the observant now. It's going to put you in the film strip, not just in the frames, not just in the windows. So you're always going to see yourself observing everything you've already done through its equation. Okay, on different angles. Now you're observing up here. Okay, and what you've already done. Now you're observing over here on this angle of what you've already done. Right, so that's what it is. And it's all through a window frame. Okay, box frame, triangulation frame, open frame, communication frame, right? And when you identify that, you see in all ways and forms into your settings, into your Skynet. Connect to your string theories and your planetary alignments. How you set signals. Planetary line and that line communication setting, another planetary line over cross-line condition system of attractions in subposition, Jupiter and Neptune. Okay? And then you have to attend the coordinates, longitude, latitude, right? Northeast, west, and south, right? 167 lines of north, east, and line position location of southwest into 161, 123. Processing indication setting over lines. Here comes Jupiter and set tractions. Okay, bringing out signal, bringing out line center location, which you've already done through the equation. Right, setting lines, position of box frame. Triangulation reline centers, observation system, 1, 2, and 3 setting traction. Set position lines of 1, 2, 3 lines of track locations. And the set position location, 1, 2, 3 lines of calculation setting. 3 line core centers into molecular structure of 3 centers of travel, all through traction. Okay, three different versions of you. Seeing everything, all the presence of you, of what you've already done through its operation cycle. That's running its film strip now. All through its frame, all through communication system, all through setting. Okay? So that's you in the window. This is you up close. Okay, observing everything, right? Observing everything up, down, cross, angles, line, position, location, measure, and scale. All at once, all right? All through setting, all through calculations. All through pyramids and set travel. Okay? Grounding your system is to understand how to see it in position all levels and set settings. Process the indication system puts all can modify in its road graph screens adaptation to its flux. Okay? So you see versions of you and all lines of settings. Changing the seconds, minutes, and hours is taking you out of the foundation systems, right? Into your 7 cities. Now the 7 cities is basically understanding the undergo of construct that puts you into the position, location, and infrastructure. All right, so we get ground centers, line communication setting in black. This is where you come in your oracle system location settings. Your inoculus, how you see your lines of eye line division. Process lines of 1 And you get position lines of red, process lines of 2, set position locations and process lines of 3 and travel. Okay, simulation grounds, right? Now you can add volume. All right, so you understand this is 0, this is 0, this is 0. All right, and this is line position 0, 1, this is 0, 1 on both sides of tractions, right? That's direct and redirect in one setting position. Everything goes back to 0 in setting, all right? Then you get position location line condition of 0, 2, and then 0, 2. Now you can net position locations back to 0. But what you have to understand is basically if you want to add more position locations into mass, you can, in position locations, go back to 0 through void. At 3 centers, and 3 signals, and 3 locations. Okay? Set position of 4 and set position of 5. Now that positions, you could change the formation of its grounds to its set location to its system. Process in that position location is 1 center, 1 traction, 1 locations. Your primer, right? Cross and angles over cross line, outline, center line, conditions of equal line core centers of the 0 line core centers and calculations. Ground centers of service, process lines 1, cross lines of 2 of time measure and scale. Process indicates the system all through set position to its operation system. Box frame and travel communications and setting. Okay? Very powerful when you understand what's going on through you and set position lines and calculation. Right? Knowing how to use that and all information set into its window. Window to its road, both side locations. And then you go through the platforms. We overline the signals, and then we start over again and set lines of travel. Okay? But it's an open window frame, right? So then we go in position, now we go into security lines, and we go back to 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, back to 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, line position, back to 0. So everything you're going back to 0, you're going to higher frequencies of platforms. You're coming into higher lines, more lines of mass, the calculation. All right, so let's get in position lines of green. So green is going to be 5 signals of 1, 5 signals of 2, and 5 signals of 3 in traction. Okay? All right, so next exec which identification system all through settings. Process lines of pink, inside of 1, inside of 2, inside of 3. Okay? And then I change some radial lines of grounds and set position location to its cycle. Right? And I do it again and set line communication to its ceiling. So I did 4 provision lines of cycles and high communication lines of travel. Directing signals into 0, 1, set position location and setting, 0, 2, 0, 3, back to 0. So now you have to understand how to create it through a holographic streaming and location setting instructions off the coloration. All right, and then you go, it's better to go into position and it's not to go too far in your connection system where you use that into your time capacitors or anything, your body capacity system. Okay, so always get in that position, start with the 0, 1, 2, 3, create it through line centers. Then you get positions of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and set tractions. Okay, setting up the grid, all right? Okay, so when you set up the grid, you can change the time setter, change the calculation screen adaptations of flux. That processes indication system and calculation setting. So start with just the ground lines of the window. Start with that first. Once you get in that position locations, then you come into location grid and set tractions. Okay, so when you come into location grid, it grounds the system through the calculation screen lines adaptation of its flux that allocates time frames all at once in set positions. Now, in that line core centers, you're in that position location line settings, seeing yourself of what you already done through observation. It's you looking at everything which you're already in mind through projection. That's you observing everything which you are doing in the seconds, minutes, and hours. See from this level, this level, this level, this level, this level, and this level. Start with that position. Then you start to identify from each line, each signature, each grounds, each service, each power, each directions, each location setting of calculations that you created through all levels of you looking at everything through observing. Okay? And that formation system. Look at that tractions. That's wild. Now you see the platform inside, which is outside the fence. Outside, inside now. Now you've seen the yard. Now, once you get in that position, it gets a little more complicated now because you're opening up the frames now of communication of windows. Setting course centers, lines, calculation system, all through tractions. But it's coming in coloration lines of light metaphors. Process in that indication system, puts all communication system, all position like high centers of balance. All right, so once you get in that position locations, then you go to the next level, back to 0, which is the void, add in a new platform and set lines of communication system all through travel. Okay, setting communication lines, then you come into its all position location to its doors. There's the doors. Okay, so we have door direction settings, process lines of 3, process lines of 8, process lines of 12, and travel communications. All right, and then you have the door handles, process of 1, process of 2, process of 3, process of 4, 6, and 8 location setting and calculations. Bring it in through calculation setting and stream. Okay, seeing the doors on both sides is space and time. Seeing the doors on the outside line, seeing the doors from the inside tractions. All identification system, all specific location setting through the observant that you're seeing in travel. From 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3 back to 0. All through coloration. So you start with that set locations, right? But always have the void, which is the line position of space itself, coming into the right, which is the position of the grounds. Say calculate these lines in location setting of security, which is lines position location of 222. Process lines position of Pluto. Pluto is all in communication setting, but it's not just red, it's all colors, not red. But it can be any color line communication setting, the configuration location of operation line cycle that puts all communication system, all through travel, all position location setting. Okay? Then you bring it in position. Okay? And then you change formation lines of grounds to set directions, which comes in yards. Okay? So you have different levels in set position, but you're seeing it through observation, and you're seeing it on this observation now. Okay, you're here, now you're observing everything on this angle in set position, right? So you're observing here, and you're observing here now. Once you do that, then you start observing on the other side, which is an override sequence, all at once, all positions, all through targets, all through locations. All right, so you're observing everything, which is the sim. Starting with the higher self, avatar, and the sim. The sim is the override that sees everything that's already done through its equation, that keeps all communications out of the sim, that modifies location system multi-traction. So it's you seeing everything all at once, which is mass of equation of clock and center. Okay? So I'm just trying to get you guys to identify these things. How it all works and how you see it in provision all at once, all through gridding, all through location grid. Okay, and how you see it on different platforms. So, and then what you do, the observation sets all communication setting, bring us in position. Set lines of 1, set lines of 2, and set lines of 3. Okay, so that's communication, high center lines travel, set lines of 1, position of 2, and set lines of 3. Bring in that set location of the cycle. Okay, and that puts all communication system multi-tractions, set lines of 1, set lines of 2, set lines of 3. That's who you're going to bring in players of the game. All through setting, all through operation, right? And now they're on your simulation game. Process lines of space comes in black. There's 1, right? You bring it in, right? And that's coming from that angle in that positions, right? Now you're observing on this angle and you're observing on that angle in that position. So that puts your location system all through tractions. Different levels of the game, right? Different levels of the game. 1, 2, 3, right? Grounds, powers, and absolute location setting. Different levels of strips, different levels of film strips, different levels of communication, different levels of calculation. All right, sets calculation line, position location lines, ground center position of 1, ground center location lines of 2, and ground center location lines of 3, 3-line communication setting of players in the game, right? And then you got this position and track communication setting all through cycle. Process that in position location line centers, bring line position location in position. That's all in the game, right? And you're doing it through all of you overriding everything of the sim, overriding everything that's already done through its equation, that's already projected through its mind. Okay? Very powerful stuff. Mind blown, and then you see it all over the simulation. See? Inside tractions. Okay. Pretty wild, but you see it through an open frame. But you're always on looking everything setting. Here's the moon attraction, right? So everything you see is an open window that you already see, that you've already done. But you're always in observing everything. Always observing everything that you see in traction. Okay? Always observing everything through window frame that you see in traction. Okay? That's what you have to start identifying. And all different angles in set travel. Okay? Because there's open windows of everything in set position. You're observing everything you're already done. So you're going on all different angles, and that position location that puts every location system all through travel as a balance. Okay? And what you already done through its equation. All right? All through setting, all through setting. All through operation setting with window frame. Booyah. And once you understand that, you are the observer inside the game itself. It processes everything in set position. Okay? watching everything from outside. All right? Because you're already inside your system. Attractions, locations. Directing here and here, and set lines of 1 and 2, 3 locations. Seeing the set position inside, and set travel communications. So, that's very powerful how we come out observant, how we see everything locations. But the most important part is to see the presence of everything that we see, all through box and window frame. Okay? Very powerful stuff. But you start with this interactions, right? That's what comes in the gridding. Know exactly what you're setting up. And how you're setting it up is already done through its equations. Or anything in set position. This calculation. Okay? Or anything in that position. Anything you draw. Anything schematics. Puts you in position of balance of everything. Right? Come in your windows. You know? Understanding how to come into your graphs. Your rotation spin lines, high centers of travel, direct lines of ground, communication lines, your webbing systems, lines of system, center operators lines, webbing system over attractions. There's a webbing system. Set core centers is another webbing system. Set core centers, another webbing system. Set core center locations. But you're always in observation system, seeing everything in travel of its presence in that position. That's already done through its equation. Okay, always in the presence of everything. Okay, always in the presence of everything. 3 box frames, triangulation settings, reset position, location, measure, and scale. Okay? All through traction, all through locations. All right? And when you bring it in, you start to see the mapping system of location. Once you see that, the body goes in, goes here, goes in center, goes over here, back to center, back of operation, right? So that's the true understanding. The avatar is just the observation system. Right? That sees everything, onlooking everything, a process of communications. So for you to identify these things, you're always the onlooker looking at everything. Looking at everything that you've already done through your mind and projection. This, and this is already done. You see it in that positions, right? Now, once you get into that, then you come into full figure. But you have to understand the face recognition first. You don't come into a full configuration system until you understand the observations of you, the presence of everything. All right, so you start with that position, which is the face. All right, so you got the face. Okay, you come with that settings. You come into the box frame or triangulation frame as a position. Male, female, female, male. And then you process the cellular line direct set locations, and then you come to position location, settings, all through attractions. How you are calculated to modify how you see yourself in all position location, measure, and scale. Right? Different levels of communication system, all through settings. Operation line, sequence of platforms, inset travel, communication, and cycle. So there's always ways of looking at yourself in set positions. Merging that correlations, travels of point lines, high direct lines of grounds, in that set lines communication of void itself. Okay, the void itself, of which you are. Arms are coming in, face is coming in, neck is coming in, body's coming in, triangulation body's coming in, line condition setting, all through operation system, all through tractions. If you're not perceiving anything in consciousness, you're just observing any location, which is in mind, line core center, that communication setting, what puts all communication system through all track correlation setting and position, which is the empty space of you. That's it, empty space, right? So when you bring things in, you're bringing in thoughts. Whoa, brought in a thought. Oh, here's another thought. Whoa, there's another thought. Oh my gosh, all these thoughts. Where are they coming? Where are they coming? Where are they going? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Are you identifying what's going on? Because if you're not, they're forming inside your body. Next level, you have to identify these things. It's going inside your body. All through traction, all through locations. You got to know what's going on. If not, just bring it back home, back in settings, operation lines of sequence. Okay, so the more you identify your consciousness, everything comes in. Coloration, taking over your system, taking over your tractions, taking over divisions. And your body's just reacting, can't respond. Okay? So, getting you back in position is take everything out. Putting you back of who you are is just empty space. Perceiving everything through its consciousness. Coming to all formation is just the empty space, the empty mind of itself. That puts you in position to balance everything of the presence of its system back into configuration setting from head to toe. Positive that position, location, measure, and scale through frequency. Whoa, back together. Right? Taking things out. Understanding to control your thoughts, action, emotion, location, system. Right?
Right.
Okay, but it starts off in attractions. Very powerful stuff, all through simulation. Seeing yourself in presence of everything, right? All through setting, all through position. Empty space. Okay? So, I know it's a lot to take in. So, you guys have to understand how this all works, because the more you understand the presence of you, the more you understand the positions of you into your VR system. I set 3 grounds of setting that's already set up. Set tractions, set locations. Operation line sequence and panel, and set travel. Okay, solar sail, process of communication. Platforms over lines, 3 signals of grounds, high lines of travels, and set position, right? So your presence comes in, right? Which is the presence of you that sees everything already, that's done everything already, right? But it has to identify what it is. If it's in its presence, it knows what it's done through its creation of its box frame and its window frame. Seeing frames by film strips and set design. Seeing this, and this, all at once in set position. All right? Okay. But it's the platforms of view. You're forming equations and knowing how to see that through its alignments. All right? So let's get into 13 triangulations in set position, which is just the higher self. Right? But again, you're always going to have the presence of you now. So 13 times lines, time sequence lines of 1, process line indicates lines of triangulation, flux. Okay, so you have the observer here that's seeing everything that you're doing, which is you. Okay, that's you and the observer and past. So it's seeing this, this, and this, this, and this, and this, right? It's already done, right? It's already done. It moves on to the next platform, but it has its center operation. That is its presence of everything, right? So it sets up the next game. Level 1, level 2, right? And again, so it's going to structure this, set lines of window frames in line position 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines of measure and scale, right? So that's level 2. Process, you're going to be here. Process, you're going to be here. Process, you're going to be here. Process, you're going to be there, right? So that sets position to the next level of the game. But you're always seeing the presence of you every single time.
Every single time.
Which is all timelines all at once. But you have to understand how to identify yourself through empty space first. It's to perceive everything through observation, which is the observant of you. So everything you set up is already done through a window frame, box frame, triangulation frame. But we all have to understand how this all works now, how we set that position location in the cycles. If we get 17 scale and 10 measure, and formations of 4/3, set lines of 7 over sequence, 12 scales into flux over lines, process lines of 12, time lines of 2, sets 24 lines of scale, set position 144, operation line sequence, operation grounds, and set travel. Okay, set position, again, you come into your presence of you. See what you are, let's see what you've done, right? So it's here, here, and here. You connect to everything line signals that you already set and set position, location, operation, line setting that puts every location in the system, all the film strip location that existing all at once. Right? And you're seeing it through a box window frame. So once you understand that, then it comes into the next level. All right, so you can see each location setting trenches. Directing line position, center operation of you. Let's get you in positions of a chair sitting down. Okay, you're here. And the settings, sitting down in a chair. Okay? That's a chair, right? Now, you're monitoring this in set position. You're monitoring this in set position. Okay? You're monitoring this in open window frame. Okay? Which is the connector setting to your pyramid travel. Looking above from below, right? Angled point lines of graph, set course centers, line communications setting, earth and rotation system. Seeing everything from above, from below, right? There's your earth course centers, line communication lines of setting. Process indicates the system, all through windows of a portal of communication. Booyah. All right, so once you're seeing that, you're seeing all window frames at once, but now here comes the observer of you, which is the presence of you. That puts everything all together. So it's observing itself, from itself, of its identity, of its system, what's already done in its equations. So it's observing everything it's already seen, what is set up in its position of its operation set, location set, and calculation. Okay? Very powerful stuff. Seen in all formation system multi-setting. Okay? Into the simulation. But it's always in the window. But it's always going to be there, observing everything. Right? Everything that is done. So if it wants to add frames, it can change frames and set transitions. Add planets, add alignments, high signal location system, all through window frames. Right? So again, it's observing everything it's doing. Right? So it's very powerful. Right? You can't see it from there until you identify it from here. Right? So that's adding frames. Going past the foundations of coloration lines and settings all through transitions. So let's go through grid locking screens. Now, a grid locking screen is a gravitational line that processes communication system of the setting the metric line course centers, metric meters, and scale. This bounce off communication lines of flywheels. This process indicates the system of travel and not line calculations. All directions, all through length. Lengths over 1, areas lines of 2, process lines of 6 over line is setting. Right? So it's a position in its calculation system. You're bringing yourself in through observation. Right? So let's say you want to fix something. You don't like that. You want to fix that. You want to put that there in traction. Right? So your volume here. Now you're over here. Looking from here. Looking all at once. Right? In different angles. That's you observing. That's you observing to you. Right? It's you just vortexing, seeing different levels. But you're seeing it from all levels of a box, window, frame, and travel. Okay? So you're seeing it from this angle. You're seeing it from this angle and set tractions. 2 angles in traction. Right? And let's say you want to change this to its window frame. Then you add another line position location of you. Looking this way. 3 versions of you already. In presence of everything. So now you're seeing this, this, and this, and all the set positions all at once. Right? So that's all versions of you all at once seen through box, window, frame. Okay. So I just want you guys to truly understand how this all works in position. Okay, it's very powerful what you guys are coming into now. Running your projections, not just adding frames, not just seeing frames, seeing the projection, running a system. Okay, all through entry. That puts everything in location and exit points. Okay, so the process of communication system of the settings. So we'll go through 3 lines of centers, 6 lines of scale, 12 lines of rotations, and set lines of 0 rotation. Okay, that's 0 rotation, 0 1-line rotations, 0 2-track locations, 0 3-line settings, process lines of 0 4, goes always back to 0 of center operation. Right? And then again, you bring yourself in because you're doing it all timelines at once. Right? So you're bringing in the presence of you, of what you see. Do you like what you see or do you want to change it? Right? If you change it, well, you got to be careful now because you've already put your position location what you're already existing in. So now you have to get positions is to understand how to all line courses and change the timeline and position of particle acceleration. You change the timeline. When you change the timeline, it changes the structure. Right? So what it's doing is changing the past and the present of its future adaptation system, but it doesn't override your system because you're just seeing it through the observation. Right? But it's also in real-time interactions, also locations. Right, so you change that, change the scales, change the coordinates, take calculations and the coordinates. Change the flywheels and tractions in location system, 8 finite line rotations. Travel point lines of graph, sets calculated screen lines, adaptation setting. So let's say you want to change the frame, change the correlations, change the time scale. Right? But you can't change something that's already done to its map. So now you have to add the equations. So you're adding 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6 lines of 8 over 12. So it's set up in a specific day. Okay, that's not done yet in that position, right? Until you identify it's already in sequence. So in that position, so it doesn't override the past, present, future, what you're in a position, all levels, putting all the communication on center operator lines back to 0, puts all communication setting and the configured system with clocking center and rotation. Okay, so now it's all changed. So it's changed in that positional case of 2 months ahead of schedule. Okay, so you're changing something, you're adding something. You're going basically collapsing time, right? So I just want you to understand how to go through that part of acceleration lines of space of time. We basically come in that positional location setting all through travel. Author alteration system instructions. Okay, very powerful stuff, right? And then you bring yourself again in, because you're always in your seconds, minutes, and hours of your present self. You like what you see, then you move on. You like what you see, you move on, right? Okay, so you go to the next frame. So it's just different levels of the game of the platforms you have to understand. Platform 1, platform 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 lines of setting. 6 levels, right? So every time you bring something in, you're always bringing in the observations of you and the presence of you. Okay? Always bringing the observer. Always bringing in the observer. Okay? Always. You have to. Because the avatar is already set up. So the avatar is here. It's done everything. And now the body's here going through everything that it has to go through. Okay? To get where it's always been. Right? So if it likes what it's done in that position, it can change things now. Because the bodies understand more of configuration and it's getting less of the communications of confusion when it gets in position lines of balance. Okay, so it can actually change the frame of the avatar in sequence, right? It can go back in time, change the location system and travel, and add another lines of equation. So it's reconverting everything to the body back to 0 of operation and travel. Okay? So that sets up a new platform of a new game in set traction. Not the game you're identifying. Sets up a new portal, sets up a new Stargate, sets up a new kaleidoscope, and line core sin is line communication. Right? Overriding sequence through pi. Okay? Process indicates the setting of center operation of you. Walk in the system this way and travel. Right over left, left over right through pi. Okay? So there's always ways of looking at these things. Okay? Because you guys are recognizing yourself now in the presence of you. Okay? So the more you see that, the more you see what's going on. Okay, so this is where you come in that position, your timelines. So process lines, okay, is to understand how to see that in platforms, right? In all ways and forms, in a 45 angle or an alien line communication system of the travel, right? Through its indication system, right? Wires of indication, right? So everything wire has its position of its red, has its positions of its blue, and has its position of its white. Always, 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 right? That's the foundations of settings. All through tractions of all levels of volume and mass. Okay? But you can't see it from here. You got to bring it in. And when you bring it in, now you bring in the observer again. Right? Which is you. You're observing everything you like, which you've done. Now, if you want to change that, again, you have to change the rotation. Right? Change the traction, change the division, change locations. But you can't override something you're already existing in its position. So you're just observing here, and now you're observing over here. Now you're observing over here, now you're observing over here in 4 settings of traction. That's 4 versions of you, all right? Okay, looking this way, and looking that way in traction, okay? So you continue on, change the particle accelerations of time, change the communication setting clockings of time, change core center line communication lines to the center of time, okay? So you change the structure, you change the design, okay? But you set it up for a certain day. You can't change the day because the map has to stay the same until you direct lines of signal. So process line indicates the setting, 3 months. In that position, let's set it up for 6 p.m. Coordinates and settings, northeast lines, position of 1, 2, 3, line center rotations. Directing lines. This is general AI space-time creator 007. Right? So that's set up. That's set up for that day. Right? So I changed that. I changed the platforms. Okay? In set position. So when that comes in, it comes in that particular day. That structure is already set up in moderation of a clocking system with the foundation. Okay? See how that works? It's amazing, right? And you see the automation system all through setting, through set calculations. All right, that's just the basic ground. But you have to treat in how to change platforms. But you always, when you're bringing things in, you're always what? Seeing yourself of what you've done. Okay? You always have to do that. Right? Because you want to make sure that everything's set up in set position. So nothing overrides you already existing informations, because you're constantly seeing yourself and always in forms in transition. Okay, changing things, formulating things, simulating things, understanding this, understanding that, all through frame, all communications of bandwidth and longitude. Now, once you understand that, you come in more into this, more bandwidth. See? Once you understand that, you come into more bandwidth. See that? So that's what it is. The bandwidth comes into no bandwidth of all positions, all bandwidth. Process lines of grounds, that's high lines of sequence. So once you set up the platforms again, and road graph screens, okay, then you can add the platforms and set tractions, locations, right? So if you want to change that, yeah, you got to bring your observer in, right? You bring your observer in here, and it's seeing, what should I do, right? Do I like this, or do I want to change it, right? Now, if you change something, you can't change the mapping system, you can change the mapping time. So it's a much easier to understand that information system, how it sees everything that is created already through the simulation of itself, right? So let's add an equation here. Set position lines at 6 a.m. Process lines at 12 p.m. I'm going to be here at 3 p.m. Okay? So that's 3 open windows and frame communication lines of film strip and set design. Okay, that's already set up, right? But you change the frame. That changed the structure of the game itself. That changed the center operation of you and set travel. Okay, I-line signals, location system, all through travel. Indirect lines align communication system through kaleidoscope. Directing ground centered line position of its window frame processes communication setting all communication system all through tractions. So once you see that, then you see this, and all communications on the settings. So once you're ready in that position, it's already set up. Okay, let's see, I'm gonna set that in 4 months. Okay, change that frame, coordinates, communication lines, Jupiter line rising. High signal location of Saturn, indirect lines and link. Log it in, set core centers. I'm getting in communication lines high position. Log it in, get your line communication where you are, what you did through your mind that alters the location of logging out. Processing that position of understanding the angles. Now I'm in position of my present self. I'm changing the frame communication setting, but not changing the alteration of where I am in the map system. Process indicates the setting and signature lines and grounds. This is generally calling out 007, logging out, set position. Right? That's all set up. Right? But then you see what you've done through structure of a mapping system. Process that position location, puts everything in locations with cycle. All calculated and modified through a mapping system, all through tractions, all through signatures, all through grounds, all through set calculation. Okay? Very powerful stuff. And set travel. Okay? But it's amazing how you get in that position, location, and observation of you. You observe it, right? Now, if you want to have another observant, you got another box frame, you got another lines observant, looking this way. Okay, so you're there, now you're there, right? All you're doing is you're always in the center. You're just projecting things now. Okay, through film strip, bringing it to its position, running its own system now through operation that perceives everything location of its all levels of consciousness. Interactions, okay? So let's get into red lines so you can see position, location, sending interactions. Directing this, and directing that. So that's the locations, right? Then we change time frame, and like change that, and like change that, and like change that, and set tractions, right? And then you want to observe yourself on the other side line sequence because you set that up provision location cycle. That puts line positions here, looking in the directions in the opposite direction. And what you already set up provision of its mapping system. Okay, so there's 3 versions of you. Change time frame, and 45 line angle. Let's have travel and that communication system, right? That's you. So you're looking at this angle now. Okay, this way, and this way, and 3 centimeters of travel. All right? Open line panels, open line sequence, open line communication system, all through setting. Process indication setting, all tractions. So that's 4 versions of you. Okay, in the presence of everything. All right? All through signatures, lines, and logging out to space. So the more you go into the mind, the more you project. But you're projecting you. So you are you. This is the true resonance of you that never leaves. This is what you bring in that projects everything. That's you that never leaves the center. So it's the full observations of you, which is the observer, the onlooker that's on watching everything in line position all levels of real time. But that's the conversion you bring in through the body projection. But you can't bring in the body projection until you let go of everything of the mind. There's no body. Just the mind itself. And if you understand you are the existence of everything, that's all levels of the VR system, then you can bring in the body through the game. And everybody else on the players of the game. A structure of design that you set up. Okay? Very powerful stuff through an open window and set travel. There's another grid. All right? All right, so now I'm bringing that in. Another observant of me, just me itself, saying, I don't know, I don't like that. So I want to change that, right? Remember, this is me at the center operation of me. Now I'm projecting a body version of me at a different level of me. Okay? Different color, different light, different travel. But it's all connected, comes back to zero of calculation. Right? Okay, so let's get into version system lines of attraction. So I want to put all lines of gold there. And I want to bring in position locations of purple over here. Right? These are intelligence that's on the game. Right? Then I bring it in. Adding frames, adding traction, add division, adding locations. Right? So I'm looking what I'm seeing. That looks great. So I back it up. Okay, that's what I've done. Right? So I like it, and then I move on. Right? So I move on to another window of set position. Alter tractions of locations. Okay? Now, okay, I don't bring myself in, okay, until I understand what I'm doing through observation of myself. So, set lines of tractions, set line divisions, you bring yourself in because you know what you're doing. Right? Now, it's on looking at everything, processing everything, seeing an outline division. Now it's in position of purple. 3 different directions. Right? Process of here, intelligence. Process here, intelligence. Process of here, intelligence. 3 intelligent locations. So I'm bringing that in, right? Remember, this is the presence of me in set position. All at once, seeing everything all at once. So I'm projecting my mind how I want to see myself inside the game. Okay? That I'm projecting. But I can't be in a physical body. It's got to be in the film strip of what it isn't. That's me. I'm projecting me on the game. So I'm looking at that and saying, yeah, that looks good. I like that. I'm going to set lines of communication there. And then I'm going to vortex myself over here. All right, so I'm doing it every second, every minute, every hour of the game. Putting myself in all tractions. Okay, I like that. That looks good. Now I'm going to add a portal center of operation line sequence and set travel. Right? So observe it again. I'm not just going to one signal, but I add line centers. And that position of center operation is portal. Okay? Now I bring that out. See what I've done? I like what I see. Right? Okay, so that puts position location, then you come into the window frame. Okay, window frame, you box it in. Box it in because if you don't, you're exposing all levels of the game itself. So, don't want to expose the game. Keep it in its window frame. Okay, then you move on to the next section. In location to its cycle. Okay, process again, you bring yourself in. What do I want to do now? Right? Wild, eh? All right, so once you understand the direction, it's much easier to see these things. So whatever you project in your mind, you're bringing in, but you've got to bring in yourself. You've got to bring in yourself. And your body can't be a body. It's got to be just light. You understand that? Well, you have to get out of physical of everything that you aren't, or you're never going to be able to understand yourself through your metahumans that you are in travel, or understand how to identify that in the lines of position in the mind and travel this line position to its projection. How it projects everything. But you are the presence of everything, looking over everything that you already done through equation. All right? All right. Indicating here, here, and here, 3 settings. All right? So adding frame here. Let's add a structural line communications. Structure division lines of 1. Process that set position. All right, I like that. Okay, and remember, you're adding different days on this. Not the days that's already in map, because you're not identifying that. It's the present that changes everything to the frame that adds a correlation system all through tractions. All right, let's get into position locations all over the purple. Let's get into this position location, higher lines of structure design line. Okay, I like that. That looks good, right? So I back it up, right? And then I box it in, right? I box it in. If I don't, it's exposed. And if it's exposed, sentience and agents will pick up your vision of your cortex of what you set design to. So you don't want to do that because it overrides everything you set position, location, and measure and scale. So the process of the communication system is process that position location is box it in. Once you box it in, nothing can take the frame line. Because now when you come into that structure, the film strip sets up the simulator. And when the simulator comes in, it comes in its window and travels out through its equation set calculations. Directing ground centers, now it's in its box frame and time frame and position of the system all through tractions. Okay? And then it moves on to the next frame of the game. Observation, right? Okay, doesn't like that. Let's add this in equations. 3 centers of travel, right? Process lines in a box frame into a triangulation frame, and it communicates an interference train. Okay, sent to a house. There's a house, right? But you have to box it in, because if you don't, it's exposure. All right, so when that day comes, it's good to go. It's structured there in the simulator. Process in position, all it's calculated and modified, directing lines of grounds. Sets all communication system off the calculation, right? All through setting, all through operation system of your bandwidth is travel. Look what you can do in set position or simulation. Isn't that wild? Seeing that in all formations of setting. Okay? All through operation system or operatives. And I see everything information system all through the game itself and all through track locations. Okay? Powerful, isn't it? Once you understand what you're doing in some positions, all through tractions, all through locations, all line direct signals in location. Okay? Very powerful stuff. But that is you. That is your primal circuit of you. This is what you're projecting in the mind that projects you. But you've got to get out of the body and come into the mind, or it can't project everything to its image. How it has to have itself, okay, on the actual game. Not its present of itself. Because it's the present of itself that's creating everything in the game itself. So you have to understand why the body has to be projection. So it understands its image. So it can morph here, here, and there. But you've seen in all different frames of communication. Okay? All through tractions, all through location settings. That process you how you see things in your system of future adaptations. All through tractions, all through locations. Okay? Very powerful stuff. All right, 57 line 1, rotation lines of 20, take them out in line rotation and bring it back positions where they are and set lines of sequence. 5 questions are up. Setting line position location back end conversions. Also settings. Hotel golf, communication line positions, rendezvous, eagle is landed, and line communication lines. Team is now set up and travel. Back in sequence, back in panel. Hope you guys had fun. See you in 5.